Most people set goals in their life and they feel like it's a lofty aspiration or something outside of them that they really want to attain. And they feel like its attainment will take a lot of work, feels like it's separate from them, feels like something that maybe they can't quite achieve. And then they write those goals down, as I learned when I was very young about goal setting, was you'd write that goal down, you'd kind of reverse engineer that goal, setting a series of steps chronologically in time to attain that goal and how much time that goal was going to take to accomplish. And it always felt separate to me. I learned that goal setting process when I was about 20 years old. I had an opportunity to get a modeling contract, and I was going to go to this International Modeling and Talent Association in New York. I was kind of a big fish in a little pond. I lived in Spokane, Washington at the time, and I was modeling. I was discovered one day in a clothing store about 18 years old, and I decided that college wasn't for me, and I was going to aspire to become a professional model. Well, my modeling agency at the time decided that I should try out for this big modeling talent association competition in New York. So I saved up my money, and it took me about 3 months to prepare and to save enough money to compete in this competition. Well, I learned this great book about goal setting, and I learned in this book that you write your goals down, and then you put them on your bathroom mirror, and you imagine what those goals were like before you fall asleep every night. And so I did that for 3 months. I was consistently focused on the goal. I wrote about 5 goals down, and one, of course, was to get a big time modeling contract in New York. There was 1,500 models at this International and Modeling and Talent Association competition. There were agents from all over the world, and they were giving 10 male model contracts, and my goal was to get one. So each day as I lived in Spokane, Washington, I had my goals written on my bathroom mirror, and I would imagine those goals coming true. But my top goal was to get this modeling contract, because I was in high school. I had aspirations of doing other things, of becoming a pole vaulter and getting a scholarship, and then going into audio engineering. I had lots of the goals, but when that didn't happen for me, I realized I needed a new path in my life. So I changed my direction. I completely focused on something different that showed up in my life, and that was to become a professional model. So all this time that I spent focusing was about a goal that was outside of me. But I learned in this powerful book about imagining your goal is happening now. So it was kind of the red herring to what my life would be about, which is imagination. I learned from a great teacher about imagination. Einstein said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." His quote further says, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited, can take you from A to B, but imagination encircles the globe." That was a clue to me. I read that quote when I was in high school. I thought, wow. As I was setting these goals, I thought about imagination. And then much later in life, I read about Neville Goddard, and he says imagination is the greatest gift that God has ever given us. Your imagination is the power you have to manifest into your life. So as you set goals and you imagine these goals, they become real in this present moment. So as I lay in my bed, 18, 19 years old, figuring out what I'm going to do with my future, and I thought modeling was it, I would imagine this big auditorium, this big conference room full of hopeful models and people hoping to create a career in this big industry, in the Big Apple. Probably the biggest modeling contract you could get would be in New York. It was the mecca for modeling at the time. I think it still is. And ultimately, when I would imagine winning this contract, I saw this room in my imagination as being full of red carpet. There were stairs, there were red stairs. There was this huge screen on the stage that had the picture of the model that got the competition contract, that won a modeling contract with a big time modeling agency. Well, I'd imagine this every night in my bed before I go to sleep. In the morning before I get up, I would imagine this goal. And long story short, flew to New York, was with my modeling agent and other hopeful models from Spokane area, and 7 days of competition, the final day comes, and I walk into this big ballroom, and the carpet in the entire ballroom is red. There's red carpeted stairs going up to the stage, and there's a huge, probably 20 foot by 20 foot screen that they put pictures of the models that got the contract. I did not know any of this. This is my imagination. I tell you this because imagination is connected to everything. So longer story short, they get down to number 9. And the 9th person that they gave the contract to was from a different country. They were from, I think, Africa. And it was a room full of beautiful people. And I remember that thinking number 10 is coming and I haven't been called yet. And I looked over to my agent and she gave me this kind of sad look like, oh, I'm sorry you didn't win. And then I just kind of took a breath and thought, oh, here we go. Here's my future. And I just kind of relaxed and let go. Lo and behold, the picture on the back of the stage was my picture. It filled the entire screen. And my heart jumped. Everybody at my table jumped up and were cheering. And I walked up there as if my feet didn't touch the ground. I thought, imagination. As I'm walking up to the stage, I thought, there's something more to this. How can this be that this carpet is red and that there's this picture and everything I imagined showed up? That I just had a thought. My imagination created this whole thing. So connecting to your goal, connecting to what you want in advance, that's the secret. So I set goals now a different way. I believe that setting a goal and writing it on your bathroom mirror is two-ness. It's a separation, it's out there. Every time I look at that goal, even though I'd imagine, I felt nervous in my stomach. I was like, oh, I had to do it. How am I gonna figure this out? What are the steps? It's gonna be difficult. It felt hard, and years later, I would keep setting goals that same way. I guess I was a slow learner. I went back to that same process because I had success once. But years and years of setting those goals, putting them on a sheet in my bathroom, on my bathroom mirror, inside the medicine cabinet, every day I would feel a little nervous inside. I'd read the goal. I wanted to sell a lot of houses. I'm a real estate agent. I wanted to sell 10 houses in 1 year. And I look at that and realize I'm not getting a lot of showings and realize that it's not happening, or I wanted to get a big time modeling contract, or I wanted to get a record deal, or all these things, these tangible things that I wanted to get became fearful. They became stressful in my body. And as that would happen in my life, I realized that's not really what I want. So I learned a great secret to goal setting. And I call it setting goals with your soul. It comes from a line that I read in a great book by Neville Goddard, saying that goals are created in your imagination before they manifest. You have to think from the end instead of about the end. Dr. Wayne Dyer had a great quote that I'll never forget. He said, how could the God of oneness ever recognize two-ness? If God is one and always is one, how could he recognize two? So if you're using your imagination, which I believe is a gift, the greatest gift God has ever given us, to set a goal, you have to come from the end. You have to think from the end instead of about the end. Setting that goal, writing it down, looking at it on your mirror is thinking about the end, not from the end. So I set goals with my soul now, meaning I use my imagination and I imagine in this now moment, that goal has already happened. I'm already selling those houses. I already feel the outcome as if it happened now. So I think from the end instead of about the end means there's no time. It needs linear time to create a goal, yes, but when you imagine it here and now consistently, when you focus on the end consistently day in, day out, you come out of that imagination feeling like, why isn't it here now? I was just in that space, and it becomes so real that you attract that outcome. By virtue of the law of attraction, like is attracted to like. You magnetize that outcome in your life. So when I set goals with my imagination, they're already here. I don't have to, go down and meet clients and sign contracts and, hopefully beg them to buy the property and worry and stress about it. I think from the end instead of about the end. It's already happened. It's already real in my imagination. So I set goals with my soul, meaning I set from the end. I live in that end now. I do it consistently. That's how I've created massive abundance in my life, emotionally, socially, spiritually, financially, musically. When I create music, it comes from imagination. It doesn't come from working out the song and stressing about it. It comes from inspiration. So when you connect your life in that way, goals don't become this fearful thing that you set every once, maybe once a year on your birthday or at New Year's Eve when the ball drops. Goals are something you connect to regularly and you focus on them regularly and you think from the end instead of about the end. They've already happened. They've already occurred in your physiology, in your mind, in your heart, in your soul. You're thinking from the end, not about the end. There's a great teacher, Nikos Kazantzakis. He wrote a book called Zorba the Great. And he has a wonderful quote in there that teaches you about thinking from the end, not about the end. He says, by passionately believing in something that still does not exist, we create it. The non-existent is what we have not sufficiently desired. So in your imagination, if you believe it, if you feel it, it exists. You create it. You imagine it passionately, and then it magnetizes that outcome to your life. And then it happens. You set goals with your soul.